Welcome into the Just Basketball Show for Monday, November 6th. I am Chris Manning. That right there is Brendon Kleen. Thanks again to Dylan Heiser and our guy Zion for his work on production and TikTok, respectively. Big show for us today. We have the Clippers' new starting lineup. Victor Wembanyama. Brendan saw him in person. We're going to talk about it. A segment we're going to do to think. I saw that on League Pass. We're going to talk about the Celtics, Zion, Tyrese Maxey doing a James Harden celebration, and a certain player who maybe doesn't like to take free throws, actively avoiding taking free throws. And we're going to get to our weekly check-in on the Orlando Magic and the Sacramento Kings. That's all coming up today on the Just Basketball Show. Two things to start. Got a new partner to tell you about, our friends at Thrive Fantasy. Thrive Fantasy is a player prop DFS platform where you can pick more or less on your favorite players across multiple sports, including the NBA and the NFL. Sign up today with the code JUSTBASKETBALL, all one word, and Thrive will match your first deposit up to $250. We're going to be doing content with Thrive as well over on our TikTok, so please go check that out. Hop in on the fun. Again, promo code JUSTBASKETBALL for a deposit match up to $250 from Thrive.
250 is huge.
That's amazing. That's a great deposit bonus. Amazing deposit bonus.
You do a little at a time. That takes you like a month through the NBA season right there.
It's little nibbles here and there. Other bit of news. Monday, if you want to, as we get deeper into the show, Brendan, and people get to know us if they're returning listeners, they're going to get to know our fandoms in other sports. We actually have a Chris Brendan 2 for this weekend. We have the Cleveland Browns who I'm not, there's some weirdness going on there, and the Arizona Cardinals who are not very good right now. We're not going to get to that. Monday, though, and more importantly for my emotional health, is the Chelsea-Tottenham game. It is both the Chris Brendan soccer derby. I'm a Tottenham fan. You are a Chelsea fan. Supporter, as they may say over in England. Mm-hmm. It is also Mauricio Pochettino, my first soccer dad, coming back to Tottenham for the first time as a coach of another team. It's going to be a big day. I've blocked off some time in my afternoon work day to have that on as I'm getting some other things done.
Still working, though, for sure, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, if you're watching this, for sure. Two things. Number one, Brendan and I are going to wager a beer the next time we see each other in person. If they draw, then we're going to try to get some sucker at the bar to buy us a beer, is my plan, is to be like, hey, I'm going to, probably not going to work, but we can try.
Make really good friends with the bartender, see if the house can take care of it for us.
Here's the thing, Brendan, there's a bar that we will go to for the Final Four that pretty sure this guy gives me free beer, which I haven't even been there that many times. I'm not an alcoholic, but we might be able to get a free Modelo.
So we're rooting for the draw, basically, because then neither of us owe any money.
No, I would like you to buy me a beer.
Okay.
Also,
I would like Chelsea to win. So,
yeah, Tottenham can hurt me. Just to be clear, I have placed an actual wager on this, covering up the sports book with the actual ticket on it. You can probably figure it out based on where I live, but I've put some real money on this, and we got Tottenham to win over 1.5 goals total. Plus 143. We're out here. Real money on the line. So
parlay?
That's that.
Both bets separately? What did you do?
I parlayed.
Nice.
Yeah, I had a straight wager on the Browns game, and then I went a very basic, not overly complicated. You get into. I feel like you get above plus 150 in a parlay.
Soccer
and you're
betting
just
is a
wasting
nightmare.
money. But
also first goal and all that stuff, you're just giving the book money when you try to bet on that stuff in soccer, because then it just hits off the defender's shin and goes into the goal, and you just feel like death.
Biggest Fugazi prop, total corners. Just stay away. I learned that the hard way.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah, at least on.
I have not gotten too deep on purpose. When I first got into soccer, I was like, let me mess around with this a little bit, and I was like, FA Cup final 2 years ago. Mo Salah is 1,000% scoring against Chelsea, and it's just useless at a certain point. If you bet Haaland to score every game, you probably are up at the end of a season, but for the most part, it's a nightmare. I don't have any faith in Chelsea. Brentford beat them last time they played a Premier League match.
Brentford's good, though, man. Brentford's good.
Sure, but 2-0 is just ugly, and Chelsea tends to do that whenever you have a little bit of belief. They let 2 goals up to Arsenal, and it ends in a tie, or any number of other things. Their offense just sputters to a complete grind. Real quick, too, just booked tickets to a UK trip with my wife in late February.
Okay.
And I will get to see the next London derby in
Stamford
February.
Bridge.
I will.
Oh,
well, I
boy,
mean, we
I'm
haven't
very
bought
jealous.
tickets for that part of the trip yet. So I'll have to, they sell tickets in a very egalitarian but kind of insane manner over there.
Yes.
Where you
Yes.
have to be like online the minute that things become available or you're going to kind of get screwed. So I'll update you when that purchase actually successfully happens. But that is the plan, is to see Chelsea and Tottenham the next time they play. So we'll have to do an even bigger bet on that one.
I love that for you so much. Really should have bet you have to wear a Tottenham shirt to that game if Tottenham wins, but I'm not that mean.
I'll do it. No, I'm down. That's fine.
Well,
if you want to send me a top, I'm not buying one. So if you want to send me that, I can wear it. Otherwise, yeah.
Well, it's also for your safety. It's like that's actually not a good idea. Like the way things work.
No, not
over
there.
there,
Not
like,
since it's at home for Chelsea. Yeah.
Yeah, like you actually shouldn't do that. But get to know Chris and Brendan. Here we go. We're not front runners like our producer Dylan, who just like likes Real Madrid and the Lakers. So okay, cool stuff, Dylan. You're just the coolest
And the
dude
Niners
out there. Yeah, what do we, Dylan? You need to pick like Luton. You need to be like a Luton Town fan, although they did beat Liverpool on Sunday, so like maybe that's actually not like front running at this point. It's like kitschy. You need to be like a Bournemouth fan. Get some real like calluses on your fandom brain. All right, yeah. NBA stuff. Let's get to James Harden and the LA Clippers. Brendan, he is going to start on Monday in his debut at MSG with the Clippers against the Knicks. Here's the starting lineup as reported by The Athletic for this game. It's going to be James Harden, Russell Westbrook, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, and Ivica Zubac. Excuse me. They are going Harden and Westbrook to start. So I want to. This is my question about this, and we're going to hit this briefly. Confidence level scale of 1 to 10 that is actually the right starting lineup for the Clippers.
Confidence scale 1 to 5. I think it's the most talented lineup, so I will say 4. Russ and Harden as spot up floor spacers has never happened. Either one. So that's the inherent problem. But you could do a lot worse than having a good roll man, a good offensive rebounder, a elite movement off-ball shooter and screen guy like Paul George is. And obviously you throw the ball to an open Kawhi Leonard, he's going to make that shot. That lineup can work. I think it can work playing fast. I think it can work getting to the basket. And it is the most talented regular 5 players that they could put together in a starting lineup. I worry a little bit about the lack of size. I worry a little bit about the rebounding. I worry a little bit about, again, the shooting when one of Harden or Westbrook has to make an open 3 and take an open 3. But I think we both kind of talked around the fact when we broke down this trade that lineup made a lot of sense. It was just a matter of psychologically and fit-wise, can they actually pull the right strings to make it work? And I guess we'll see.
Yeah, the sacrifice part of this is just the really, I think, open-ended, confusing part about this to me a little bit. I still am just skeptical that this is exactly the way that it's ultimately going to work best for everybody. I think as much as it's hard to do when these are two of the bigger name players in your team, and Russ was, I think, really good for them last year when he got there. Staggering them to me makes some sense. You get another big defendy wing on the floor, get another shooter on the floor. That to me is kind of like I wonder what the final closing lineup is going to be.
Yep.
So we'll see.
It might depend, right?
It might depend. It could depend on series. I mean, I could see this making sense against certain other teams, but if it's probably easier to maybe play these guys all together if it's like the Nuggets, as good as the Nuggets are, they don't have like that another big dominant wing. It's like, okay, can you get by and Paul George defends a point of attack, all of that stuff. I think that is very much just like in the cards and you figure it out. Or, is it, but it's hard to even say because in theory, the practicality of Kawhi and Paul George is that you have the 2 wings anyway, so you can do funky other stuff at these other spots in theory. That's like the weirdest part about this is that the optimal version of those 2 superstars together maybe allows for that.
That's why they got him, right? And I think the fact that they got PJ Tucker in this deal is a factor that we'll have to see the way that he's used. Is he a 4? Is he a 5? How much does he play? How much can he impact things? A version of this team that has Tucker at the 5 and kind of switches everything and spaces the floor even more and has 2 plus ball handlers on the court at any time that can drive to the basket. We're kind of getting back to what they were supposed to be 4 years ago, but maybe with a little less size and athleticism on the role player side. But yeah, I mean, you can see the theory, and I like that they're starting with what we know are the best players. But as I, maybe beat into the ground a little bit when we broke down the trade, I just don't believe that these guys are going to show us something new. We've seen it too many times not work in the way that we're kind of hoping it might.
Yeah, and look, if they do decide they want to change this after 15 games, 20 games, whatever, they have pretty easy options. You mentioned PJ Tucker, Terrence Mann will be there as well. They could go to either one of those and put them in the starting lineup, and you're probably okay, right? Like, you have these very easy ways to switch this if you decide you want to. But we're going to talk about James Harden and how things are going with the Clippers this week. We have a special guest coming up on our episode that'll come out on Thursday.
Tease it. Let them know.
You tell him, Brennan. You booked it. I feel like you should get the honor here to put this
Vincent
over.
Goodwill of Yahoo Sports will be joining us to break down the debut of James Harden, maybe some other ramifications of that trade. Probably could talk about how Phillies looked, because they've looked very good in the aftermath of this thing, and bounce around based on what he's written about lately and what he's interested in, whatever. We're super excited to have Vince, the most high-profile media guest we've had, for sure. I don't know if he beats out Alex Caruso, Chris, but he's up there.
Yeah, in terms of media, I think, that's, Alex Caruso.
We might have to do NBA speed dating with Vince. We didn't do it with Jack. I forgot completely.
Yeah.
But we were supposed to be doing that with our guests, so we might be able to wrangle Vince into doing that for us.
Yeah, I think we should do that, bring that back. I think it would be a good use of time and just a little bit fun. Break the ice a little bit, so to speak. All right, move on to Victor Wembanyama, who is doing unreal shit to start this NBA season, including a 38-10 game as his San Antonio Spurs beat the Suns, who obviously have some injuries right now, but he was incredible in that game. He was downright dominant in that game. And Brennan, you saw him in person twice. You got to see him two on Halloween and then on November 2nd in Phoenix in your backyard. So let's start there. He did a ton of stuff in these two games. The putback dunk, the whole performance in the second game. There's just so much stuff here where it's radiating off the TV, and what he is just absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
When you look at this, how did that pop in person versus what it looked like for everyone else on television?
In person, I think I was struck by the way that the arena became terrified of him in real time in a way that I don't think they were expecting. Because, look, the reality is with this guy, and I think it's going to be, it might even extend beyond his rookie season this year, is the crotchety old media types and or fans just don't buy it. I don't know how else to put it, but people are telling me after the second game going into the after the first game going into the second game, that he's not really a scorer. So don't guard him like he is, whatever. And then game two, what does he do? They run horns, they run double drag, they run simple pick and roll, and Vic gets a switch, and maybe 4 or 5 separate times he just annihilates what the Suns are doing to them defensively. And the reason I bring that up first and foremost, as the crowd just realized what a terror they were watching, is that I don't know if the Suns coaching staff approached it like he was a scorer either. Mm-hmm. Because you don't give up a switch where Grayson Allen or Eric Gordon or Devin Booker is forced to fight against a 7'4" alien 4 feet from the basket if you think that person can score on that. And they did not adjust quickly enough until basically he came back in the fourth quarter. But then what does this dude do? Because he's an absolute freak, is end of the third quarter buzzer, walks into a pull-up 3 from the left wing, starts jamming lobs on people's heads once the post-ups aren't necessarily there anymore, and you realize, oh, you actually can't defend that either. Not to mention the defense, not to mention anything else. And so I just honestly, I don't even know if it was it being in person or just the fact that I got to see probably his two most impactful winning performances so far. But to me, it was just a reminder or a realization, or like the first time we've really been presented with the facts that when he is in rhythm, being utilized correctly, finding ways to get involved, which will come and go as a rookie, there's no way to stop him. And the fact that it was week 2 of his NBA career and we're already being kind of like confronted with that was the crazy thing to me. I just never thought we would see winning basketball with this dude driving it against good teams this fast.
The scoring part of it, to me, Brendan, is the part of it that I think has caught me off guard more than anything else. Just that he has tools he likes to go to. Like, he has things he likes to do already that he's pretty comfortable with. He has a confidence in him that is pretty rare for someone his age or even in their first couple years in the league. Like, it is genuinely separating. And he's not even doing it, by drawing a lot of fouls. Like, he took 6 free throws in the game. He had 38. It's not like this was like he was getting to the line a lot and it was like 10 to 15 from the line.
Because I'm not sure fouling him stops him from making shots.
No, and it's also just...
That's the crazy part of it is, like, what are you going to do? Slap him, like, on his rib cage? Because that's as high up as you can reach, and then his hands are 8 feet above that, and he's already dunking on you, and now you're just giving him an and one? Like, fouling almost doesn't matter unless it's, like, another center. But when you have a mismatch, where is Grayson Allen going to foul Victor Wembanyama? On his hip?
Well, that's right. It's like if it's like you're giving up a switch to someone like Grayson Allen, if you're Phoenix and you're saying we're going to do this, you're committing to a very certain structure defensively. And I want to see this now. Like, okay, we talk about PJ Tucker, that kind of 4 or that kind of 5 who's shorter and stockier, but definitely stronger than Vic at this point in his career. How he handles that and what that looks like, I think will be really interesting and tell us something else. But he's just going up and getting himself, and he's taking threes. I mean, he's taken 5 or more threes, including 6 3 times in 4 of the 5 games. Like, he's out here shooting threes at a pretty significant clip, just letting them fly, and that in itself is pretty wild. But that's what we
expected, right? You have a note in here that he is faster than you expected. What do you mean by that? Because I hadn't thought about it that way.
I think he runs faster than I would have expected. I think he just moves faster up and down the court and around faster than I think someone his size should, and faster than I was expecting based on what we watched from him. Like, yes, the 3 stuff, I expected him to shoot threes. I don't know if I expected him just to let him fly the way he has, right? And, like, be pretty confident, even though he had, like, an 0 of 8 run. But the speed thing, he's moving around and going at things and playing with an intensity on top of, I think, just looking physically faster that I don't think was always there in some of the tape. I mean, the putback dunk, the dunk he had on poor Drew Eubanks was just, like, assertive and monstrous. And you see him just gliding up and down the court, and it's like, I don't know what you're supposed to do with this. I don't know. I don't know how, if you're an opposing team, you credibly have like a plan for some of this. Like, it doesn't seem to fit a box. Like, there are players in this league, Brendan, and you can run through the list. I think LeBron is on that list. I think Jokic is on that list. Giannis. Go down the list. There's a bunch of guys I'm not naming. Curry, I think, is on that list. What list? I think the list of guys that I think are great, and you just certainly cannot game plan for them in a real way. Like, you can have a game plan, but are you really going to stop them? The answer is no. Like, ultimately, it's can you get enough stops on this guy and make his life hard enough where they're not destroying you on a given night. There's a list. There's a category of guys on the offensive end and skill-wise that get there. It's not a huge list, but it's a lot of the guys you would think of, and it's the very, very best. The first couple games make me think Wembanyama is just already kind of inching towards, even if he's not at that peak efficiency yet in the same way, he's already kind of there in terms of what he does and how annoying and frustrating it must be for defenses. Dude, like, yes, like switching if you're Phoenix. I get it. You try to do it. He's smaller. You say, we can try this, make him beat us over the top. Well, he's doing that. So now, coming up their next 5-10 games, Are teams going to try different stuff? Are they going to come up with Victor Wembanyama rules of some kind? Like, we're already kind of trending in that direction with him based on these first couple games.
It is impressive to see how quickly he has adjusted his game at every point in time. And people who know about the draft and scouted this guy when he was even younger than last year they always say, like, the reason he was some sort of marvel at the time that they first saw him, maybe pre-fibula injury that he had in December 2020, is, okay, like, he has a little bit of skill. He has the makings of somebody who could hit some jumpers, dribble, handle. Okay, interesting. Like, let's put a pin in that guy because he's only 15, 16 and already is resembling a player who would be game-changing. And the quickness with which he became that guy, I don't think anybody saw coming. And last year, the guy went to the French League team that he went to. You remember it was back and forth between one or the other. He ends up going to the one that I think fewer people would have expected because it was worse than the other. But we knew he could get playing time. They basically built, you can read Brian Windhorst and everybody else that's written about this guy. They catered a franchise to him. And it wasn't worse. They went to the finals. But if you watched those games, if you watched him in the French League, he was posting up. He was operating as kind of a dump it in, and honestly, a lot of the time, more of a playmaker. Like, he sort of was looking to pass first a lot of the time as an offensive guy because they had decent guards and they had Koulibaly and they could score in transition well. And if he could just defend and then finish as an offensive guy, you didn't see him taking a lot of threes and whatever. Now he gets to the NBA. We saw him, basically it took him one summer league game to adjust to what the style of this sport or this league was going to be, and he just adjusted. And I do think one of the things that did pop out to me in person is the feel. So you're talking about there not being answers, right? It's like, okay, you switch, that's clearly not going to work as long as he's comfortable and the guy is not somebody like Nikola Jokic or something. Outside of those types of huge dudes, I don't know who's going to get him off his spots or really make him uncomfortable, even as a rookie. Okay, he can make jumpers, shoot jumpers. He's confident with that. But there were moments where, whether it was in the post or the short roll, that he would get a pass delivered to him, and he's making these, like, honestly, I hate to clown Joel Embiid with a little bit of a drive-by insult here, but you compare the passes that Vic makes on the kind of like slap hit to the teammate, like he's playing handball or volleyball or something, to whatever Joel Embiid tried to do on opening night with that ugly turnover that he had. And that jumps out as well. He's already aware of the attention that he's getting and the gravity that's sucking onto him from the defense, and he's finding the right teammate. It's crazy.
He might already be better than I think we could have expected, and I just feel like we just might be headed towards something in real time that just feels mammoth. Let me ask you one other question about the in-person part of this, Brendan. How did the crowd react?
Sounds like he's boring you. Are the Browns distracting you, Chris? Get excited about Victor Wembanyama, please.
Here's the thing where I'm at with Vic.
Your voice has not risen above the decibel of like 5. You're saying he's doing something we've never seen. You watched him. I was there, but come on, this dude's freaking. He's 19.
I'm staring at his basketball reference page right now, and just like looking through the numbers. I've been looking at his clean in the glass page, and it just. Mm-hmm. And you watch the clips and they don't make sense. Like, this doesn't make sense. There are players in this league that can do things that confound you, that baffle you in good ways, that like they don't make sense. And their body types don't make sense. He's already just kind of doing that in a way that I haven't fully I think where I'm at, Brendan, is I haven't fully wrapped my mind around this. I have not fully had it like click into place that this is just here and he's real and this isn't just like a simulation in front of me a little bit. That is where I'm at with it. Because he does things that I just, like, I thought we were in our lifetime, the athletic marvels that would break the game for us were like LeBron and Giannis, right? And then, you know, like you have different versions of that and with Curry and what he does and what Jokic does and all of that stuff. This is like we have a new species of basketball player who is like the apex predator of an entire generation, just that has just kind of morphed his way into the fold in front of us. And I don't understand what teams are supposed to do about that. I don't understand, like, I don't even, like, even from, like, the Spurs perspective, I would be so stressed out trying to figure out how to actually, like, figure this out in real time and, like, maximize
and how good they can be, right?
Yeah,
are we a playoff team? Are we going to be the 10 seed, or is this just going to come and go and it'll be up and down because he's a rookie? Like, I don't know. Should they be, like, hitting the gas and being like, they were a team where it's like, if you told me they, like, dumped Doug McDermott and dumped Keldon Johnson at the deadline for future picks, I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. You get off some money. You kind of build for the future. You kind of give yourself more assets to play with because you're probably not going to have a high draft pick for a while. But then I'm like, do I want to trade like two like rotation guys because Victor Wembanyama is already this good and I don't want to like ruin any little thing we have going on here? Like, am I already there? Am I already concerned about that? Right? Like, that is the part to me in terms of, I think two things. I think where I am at is seeing him in person, I think will just unlock things. I think when you actually see guys up close, as good as you can see in the TV, there's nothing like seeing it staring you in the eyes. That was like that. It's like that for me with Luka. It was like that for me with LeBron as a child. It was like that seeing like some of the Curry stuff in person for, you know, when you got there. Jokic is like and that
as
crowd
well.
Energy. Like, that's why I pointed to that first, is the crowd can feel how a dude is taking over and how demoralizing it becomes when that player is involved. And I think people will watch their team play Wembanyama on a given night and be like, let's see about this. No, he's going to chew your team up and spit you out. That's what's going to happen this year.
So how did the Phoenix, the couple nights he was there and then afterwards, like, react to him? There's a Kevin Durant thing we're going to talk about with him that I thought was incredibly kind of poignant from KD. But how did, like, Phoenix as a city, and like this isn't, you know, I don't know if this happened in Cleveland sometimes when Luka comes through and Giannis comes through. There are big Greek populations for Giannis and there's a big Slovenian population for Luka. When those guys come through, the crowds have shown out and it has been like a scene for those guys. Now I'm wondering, like, what, like, it might just be New York, which is like less fun, but I want to know what like the big like city is going to be where there's like a random big like French population. It's just like a bunch of French flags and people in Vic jerseys. You know what I mean? Like that's
yeah.
Like if I
maybe somewhere up north because of if people come from Montreal or something, I could see that.
Yeah, maybe it's Toronto. Yeah,
sure. I think the main thing is those moments you talked about.
It's probably New Orleans. It's probably New Orleans.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think the moments where it really jumped out were the big dunks and the big transition plays and whatever. And I think those are the places where the amount of space that he consumes is unfathomable. A cut from him, a catch, it's like Giannis times 50%. It's like the ways that all those clips used to come out in Giannis's first couple first MVP seasons, where it would be like, Giannis took 3 dribbles and got to the basket. I don't know if Vic will have the ball in his hands that way, and that is part of what makes Giannis insane and great in his own right and everything else, and the strength and all that. But it's like that where, I mean, Durant did not box out even a little bit on the putback dunk that he had at the end of the first game, so like maybe that's not the best example, but the Eubanks dunk or the cut that Wembanyama had at the end of the second game where Zach Collins kind of got doubled and then Vic cut from the free throw line, caught the ball, and it's over. If he has the ball within any amount of distance of the rim, it's done. To point to the highlights of the cleaning the glass page that you talked about, he's missed 4 attempts at the rim this year. He's 18 of 22, 82%. I don't expect that to change. And the Spurs defense is almost 30 points better per 100 possessions when he's been on the court. That's in the 99th percentile.
It's a joke.
That's like a joke number. It's a joke number. Are among the best defenses in the league, I think. And it's just that kind of stuff that I don't think we were necessarily prepared for this guy to do. They're not the best defenses in the league this year, 25th, but I'm sure when he's out there, you're talking about an elite number, and it's just a matter of his minutes. It's closer to Gobert plus Durant than I ever would have thought. That's how it feels watching him when he's at his peak, is that you fused maybe the best defensive player of his generation and one of the most unguardable offensive players of his generation together. That's what I felt like I was watching.
I can't wait to watch him against there's so many other kinds of guys I want to see him against this year, which I think only adds to this well. Like him versus the Lakers is just like the LeBron part of that is just going to be really interesting. How LeBron talks about him. We'll get to the KD thing here shortly. The Jokic part of it, the Embiid part of it.
To me, Jokic and Embiid are the interesting ones. What does he do against dudes who have like 100 pounds on him?
Yeah, and then on the other side of it, like I'm already kind of now like I want to see Chet against him and I want to see Mobley against him as these young bigs who like just kind of got their lunch eaten as far as like the next young big NBA superstar. And it's like, oh, well, you might like your path to winning a Defensive Player of the Year just got a lot harder, Evan Mobley. Really sorry for that. Jaren Jackson Jr. should be on that list as well. You know, like what happens with those guys and Wemby?
Well, Jaren is a separate conversation.
Yeah, well, the Grizzlies.
Reasons.
yeah,
but
Grizzlies.
I have one question before we get to the Durant thing.
Yeah.
Do you have him in play more after these 5 games for awards and things like that than you thought you might? Is he somebody who might be an all-star? We talked about this with Rookie of the Year, and you seem to think like it's going to be a runaway thing, and I probably agree with you.
The betting markets also think it's going to be a runaway thing. Like it's just kind of over.
Like, it probably is. All-star, Defensive Player of the Year, All-NBA. Like how far are you willing to go with it right now? 2 weeks in, 5 games in.
All-star and getting some Defensive Player of the Year votes. I don't know if he's going to win it right away. Because like the defense just overall might not be good, but I think the film for him specifically and the numbers for him specifically will really resonate. All-Star is also just it's hard to make an All-Star team. You know, LeBron did make it as a rookie, right? Like it's very hard to make it as a rookie. So maybe like he doesn't get there, but he's certainly like gonna be in Indianapolis and running shit in any rookie showcase stuff and put him in all the events that he wants to participate in. You know, like
that's a no-brainer. But yeah, I mean the whole round numbers might not be there for him because there are going to be nights where he just doesn't make shots.
Yeah, I mean, the Suns game is like he could have a better game this year, but that's probably going to be one of the 5 defining Victor Wembanyama moments of this entire season.
I'll let you put that ceiling on there, Chris. I'm not co-signing that one. He did that in Game 5. What is he going to do in Game 75?
Yeah, but there's just like, look, even if it's smaller ups and downs because of how good he is, there are just going to be peaks and valleys with this. That's just how this works. That is how the universe, like it happened with LeBron, it happened with Durant, it happened with like all these guys. Like it just does. Like the universe will find a way to challenge you in some way, and like there will be a way that Victor Wembanyama gets challenged that we haven't seen yet. It's going to happen. Like, it just will. And how he But the thing is, if there's ever been anyone we're sure is just going to smash through that wall, probably him.
Yeah.
Okay, the Durant thing. The last thing we'll hit on with Vic. Durant got asked about if there's Wembanyama, if there's KD in Wembanyama's game. And KD gave this answer that Matt Moore had this first, but I think the sentiment just to me hits it perfectly. He could have taken this and been like, nah, like he's a rookie, could have shot him down, could have really played it up and like taken, I am a guy that has set the template for guys like him. But he really went out of his own way to be like, that's his own man. He's his own basketball player. Maybe he watched me growing up, but he's his own thing. He's his own, kind of just saying like he's his own artist in some way, right? For KD to give that answer and give what really felt like a cosign of how talented Victor Wembanyama is this early, and from someone, Brendon, that I think is probably the NBA superstar that loves basketball more than any other superstar that we have in this league. That if there's someone that I just think loves hoops, more than anyone, it feels like it's KD. That to me was such a compelling answer from one of the best to ever do it and one of the best players alive.
So the Spurs also had a loss by 40 to the Clippers. That was a sign of what a down will look like, right? We said ups and downs. Up was November 2nd. Down was October 29th against the Clippers. I love that Durant thing, and I think it speaks to the fact that they see him coming, not just as a talent, but as a celebrity, as everything that it means to be an NBA player and an NBA superstar. I think they see that in him too. He had this quote that reminded me of the JJ Redick podcast. I'm talking about Vic now. The JJ Redick pod that he did before the draft. After that Clippers loss, Chris, did you see this? He said, We've got a famous saying in San Antonio. It's pound the rock. It has a deep meaning. How I see it and how I see life, there's always adversity and struggles sometimes, but it's not about how bad the struggles are going to be, but how persistent we're going to be. It's just the beginning of the season. It's just one loss. We're young. We got a long way to go, but we're going to keep pounding the rock. He talked about playing Kawhi and Paul George and then Durant coming up, and he said, they're my idols, but they're still my opponents, so I wouldn't really allow myself to just entertain a relationship with some guys that I'm going to have to play against to fight against someday. Can I move to San Antonio? I'm all in.
Is your wife? I mean, that's not a question for you.
I don't want to live there. I don't want to live there, but this dude is. I mean, I don't know. Like it's every single thing is on the table.
This is one of those moments, and I know you said my decibel level wasn't super high. I try to keep I try to be a very even-keeled person, Brendan, just for my own sanity. This is one of those times that I'm genuinely, and you can, if you're watching on YouTube, you see me smirking now, and like thinking every time we've talked about him the last 10 minutes. This is one of those things where I think like you will remember seeing some of his Victor Wembanyama stuff 10 years from now.
Yeah. When does he come to Cleveland?
In January, I believe. I think January 7th.
We'll definitely be talking about that because I think it'll change some things.
I think it's just going to reinforce everything that I'm feeling, but it's just like when it clicks in place. There's just something so visceral about seeing guys in person that unlocks things for me. Like Jokic made more sense to me when I saw him in person. Mm-hmm. LeBron, all the improvements he made post-Miami, I didn't see him those 4 years even when he came back. I just didn't go for whatever reason.
Hater.
Probably. It was younger. Had hair. No chocolate the hair. Well, usually works. Usually it lands.
I didn't want to pour it on. I mean,
yeah. No, look. Word of advice to you baldies out there: just shave it. You'll be better. You'll be much happier. Just when it comes, it's better just to like rip the Band-Aid off.
We're close to a segment on you giving therapy to NBA players who can't accept the reality of their situation.
There's a certain guard that I texted you about one the other night. That's like, I was just like, dude.
Yeah,
like the camera,
but there's more. We won't share their
them,
names
dude.
now, but there's a few. The
Band-Aid,
the headband review. Just keep an eye on who's wearing a headband. That's what I'll say.
Either go to Turkey or just get some clippers or pay someone lots of money because you're an NBA player and get it done. Stuff clicks into place with these guys when you actually, I think, really just see them. Like Booker made more sense to me to in point when I just like got to see him in person. I was like, oh, I get it now. You know, like it doesn't. There's something about you can watch it on TV, you can watch it on League Pass. But then you see it in person, it's like, oh, holy shit.
Yeah, so moral of the story, attend the Spurs games when they come to your city.
Yeah, pay for the tickets, go to the
They're probably cheap as hell this year. They're not going to be. Get in now so you can say you saw them, because like next year it'll be one of the more expensive nights on the schedule, I would guess.
Yeah, I'm curious about the ticket data for that one. As the hype builds, does it become like New York? I wonder if it just like gets crazy. All right. Moving on, to think I saw it on League Pass. We have two things to dive into here that are basketball related and two things that are a little more funny. The funny one, let's start there. Number one, Ben Simmons, late in a Bulls-Nets game, had a chance to grab a rebound and then get fouled and really iced the game, and instead he punched the ball away and ended up in Zach
Tyson
Levine's
Chandler.
Yep. and Zach LaVine just gets up a pull-up three. That wasn't even a great shot, but he just like hit the ball right to Zach LaVine instead of rebounding it. And if Ben Simmons is still doing this, Brendan, even if there's other things that have been positive in the preseason was positive and all this stuff, this is like red flag. This is like what's going on here, Ben?
I think the reason that I want him to succeed is because it's just so patently obvious when he doesn't succeed that it's mental at this point. And that just sucks to watch. And it feels almost invasive, if I'm being honest, to have it laid bare like that. And Zach LaVine almost made this three. He was wide open and there was plenty of time. This was not some sort of thing where it's 1 second and Ben could have grabbed it and maybe gets fouled. And no, this was straight up giving the ball to an opponent, the best shooter on that opponent, and allowing them a last-second shot that they did not need to get that could have won the game. It's just a decision that's so low basketball IQ that obviously a player like Ben Simmons would never willfully make it. And he did. And it is exactly what you said, which is an indication that he's not going to be back in the way we want him to be back maybe ever.
No, there might just be a lesser, completely unsure version of himself, and that is where we are with it. Other one, Tyrese Maxey, after he hits a pull-up three, this was against the Suns, did the James Harden celebration, like after the Harden trade, and I don't know, Brendan, whether to take this as like a homage to Harden or if he's just like saying this is now my role or what the deal is here.
I think he liked James.
He must have, but I just enjoyed whatever this was. It was cheeky in some way, and I enjoy the little playfulness from Tyrese Maxey a little bit with it.
I think it was a salute. It was homage. It was exactly what it seemed like. I think that Tyrese, to me, like every chance he gets to handle himself well, he does it. Was honestly what came to mind with this. I'm like, that's just a dude who gets what's going on, and to end up in a chaotic situation like Philly, where since being drafted 3.5 years ago, he's already lived through the Ben and James Harden situations and is still getting better, handling it well, surpassing expectations, whatever. So I know it's just a little moment, but there's a lot of guys who would just not know how to handle a lot of that stuff. And not only does he just kind of kept it moving, kept improving, but he's also, kind of cool enough to be like, yeah, and this too. I'm going to throw up the three and the peace sign or whatever.
If he ends up hanging out with
this situation,
yeah. If he starts hanging out with Lil Baby and going to strip clubs a lot, then I'll have some concerns. But otherwise, I think it's very fun. Maybe he's already doing those.
All right, my turn.
Yeah, you have two like serious ones. I just did some bullshit ones, so let's go.
Yeah, sort of. But I mean, we don't have to spend too much time on them. It's just we only do 2 shows a week, Chris, and there's so many goddamn games that I'm just like, we got to find a way.
There's so many games.
To think that I saw it on NBA League Pass, this is going to be a way we check in on things, salute to Dr. Seuss, Mulberry Street, all that good stuff, but it'll be our experiences with maybe the worst streaming service that the planet has ever created, something that I hate with every fiber of my being, unless they ever want to sponsor us, in which case we'll delete this episode. But the Boston Celtics put up 155 points on the Indiana Pacers on Wednesday night, is where we're going to start. Caveat. No Tyrese Halliburton. However, that is not exactly a player who should D-up the opposing team and change the fortunes of the opponent's scoring situation. However, they make more shots. The Celtics can't get in transition, blah, blah, blah. That's boring. I don't care. I'm just going to hype up the Celtics because they've scored 119-plus points in 4 straight games. They have the best offensive rating in the NBA, Chris, by more than 4 points per 100 possessions. They're not just the best offense. It's like everybody's playing for second right now. Jason Tatum is averaging 30 points on close to 68% true shooting. Is anybody going to make it hard on this team? Or are we just going to watch them win 65 games and score 120 plus every night and embarrass the league?
It's very possible that Brennan, like I at least might have underrated this team. I might have underrated like how good this team might be, and it is early, and teams will adjust and game plan more and figure all this stuff out. And look, Porzingis might miss, like if he inevitably does miss some time, like okay, then we get a little bit dicey here, and I think his spacing has been a real boon for them and just how they functioned. But right now, like there's never been more reason to be optimistic about what this team is and what this team is doing. I mean, they're just throttling teams, and they're putting up obscene numbers. And like right now, I was there with him a little bit last year as well, and then it kind of died off. But like Tatum might be my MVP
right now. I think he probably would have to be, right? Like
he's putting up very good numbers as he just wants to do. He's had some big nights. His team is winning lots of basketball games.
Probably him or Luka or Jokic. Probably those are the three right now.
Yeah, Luka would have Jokic would have like the best player alive argument. Luka would have did you see my averages and the things that I'm doing? And by the way, Luka kind of growing in a mustache. Want to just see him with just the mustache.
Luka's also looking thin. He's in his prime right now physically. He's looking good. Yeah, I just think the way that Boston has... So in this game, they were raining in pull-up threes, and it was unsustainable, not something they're going to do every night. However, when you just look at that team and you realize Drew Holiday is the worst shooter...
Yeah, it's like...
Drew Holiday is the worst shooter on the Bucks, or on the Celtics. On the Bucks, he was the second best last year. I mean, when Middleton's been out.
It's a great way of putting it.
It's crazy. And the way that they mix in post-ups has been cool too, especially for Tatum, Holiday, and Porzingis. They just spread you out and then beat you inside. They run. They obviously will just have to keep tabs on whether Brown and Tatum and everybody are getting to the basket enough and keeping the defense actually honest. And we'll see. It's not June yet, but it's been an awesome start for sure.
Tatum this year, 69.3% true shooting percentage. Effective field goal percentage is 64.5. This is, his usage is actually like a little bit down, and he's been hyper efficient and just absolutely incredible score. Some of that is what he's doing from three is certainly just maybe not going to hold, but boy, he looks good. We're getting into like some prime Jason Tatum years here, and it's going to be very exciting.
Still only 19.
Yeah, I was going to make the same joke. You forget he's only 19 years old, and he's been around for so long. Unbelievable stuff. All right, Zion is your other one. Let's talk about him.
Yes. So, kind of got exposed defensively against the Hawks on Saturday night, which is a game I just caught up on before we recorded. But we can go offense versus defense. I just want to be positive to start because the part of his game... Two parts of his game that I think people forget about when we talk about what does it look like for him to be healthy, how do you build around him, what are the things he's great at, is he more than just small Giannis, or whatever. The speed and the passing. And both of those have been there every night this year, it feels like. I think I've watched them 2 or 3 times already. And you just see it. And I think when he lowers his shoulder, gets into a crouch, and just goes full steam blowing by his man, they're very good at getting him the ball after initial action in the middle of the floor. Obviously, he can attack a mismatch, run a pick and roll with Jonas, and get a switch of a center, and it's chopped liver. But the speed against some of the guys that are like-sized against him is crazy. Like, he's beaten Jalen Johnson off the dribble. That's a guy who should be able to stay attached to Zion. Maybe he just gets his shoulder barreled into him and falls over at the end of the play, but he's blowing by that guy too. And then you watch his approach offensively too, and it's just the passing is immediate. And I looked in like assist percentage, different stuff like that isn't actually super different than it was when he was doing this last November, but it feels a little more intentional and purposeful this year in a really cool way where it's just the minute that help comes, he wants to pass it. It's not a last resort. A lot of young scorers, like I think this was Shaedon Sharpe, who had an awesome fourth quarter the other night. He wants to throw the pass when like 3 guys are on him, and it's like, all right, shooter. You know what I mean? I would prefer to score, but I know the right play is to pass it. Like Zion feels like he's kind of evolving where the passing is more of a first plan a lot of the time, and that's special. That's what's going to make him even better. And then they went to center with him at the end of the third quarter. He was being used as a screener, doing all kinds of crazy stuff. So it happens annually. I know there's a lot of caveats with Zion. I just mentioned the defense, but this dude's really, really started the season well, and the Pelicans are winning.
This is where, like with Vic, I'm there. This is the team that has just been so disappointing and deflating after really exciting moments before, and then they've just kind of fallen apart. I need like 2 more weeks before I let myself get a little more excited about this. Everything you said is true. Everything you said is right. But there's just like this like nagging fear in the back of my head, and then you have like the Brandon Ingram day-to-day stuff, and I'm just like, what exactly is going on in New Orleans?
Ingram did play. That's a good sign. He played on Saturday night, and they're playing together, which is another good thing. But yeah, tendonitis, like 4 games in, is just like this again.
Yeah. You're essentially like an in your prime athlete, and you're getting like what is going on here? Also, they have the worst in-season court, just for the record.
Okay.
I think it's
Who do you
them
think
or
has
the
the
Heat.
best? The Heat culture one. I think I'm going to do a TikTok on that later, just laughing at it because it's so bad. The picture that Tim, whatever the AP writer down there tweeted, was
Tim
just
Reynolds,
atrocious.
Yeah, that's just like an insane. I would buy that on a T-shirt, though. Ironically, I think.
What's the best one?
I'm trying to find a quick.
Blazers. My vote is Blazers. The Blazers red, sick.
It's not the Pacers, I'll tell you that.
No. Stop trying to make colors that no one associates with the team happen. Nike. I'm talking to you, Phil Knight.
All right. I would say I think the Kings one is good, even on the gray, but I think Portland has got to be the best. I'm looking at an SB Nation ranking real quick, and they have the Pacers in the top 10, and I just have lots of questions.
No,
they have the Pacers at 5. Like, what are we doing here, guys? Also, like the Hornets one. I don't mind the Hornets one. The gold's kind of feels like forced, but you know,
we'll
take it. The red ones, the Boston one's also good, but I just wish it was like the Celtics actual green instead of like this like dark green. Just give me just go full go if we're gonna do this. Anyway, all right, let's move on to waving the flag, our weekly segment where we check in on 2 teams we are waving the flag on. Obviously, for us, that this year it's going to be the Orlando Magic and the Sacramento Kings. I want to remind you first about our friends from Homage, the ultra-comfortable specialty apparel company with NBA and WNBA licenses that use vintage-inspired designs to pay homage to the greatest stories, traditions, and figures across sports, music, and pop culture. Use our link below in the description and purchase something to support the Just Basketball Show. But let's start with the Orlando Magic. Paolo Banchero has had a very impressive week. This team is now 4-2 in the year. They're 9th in net rating, 21st in offense, 4th in defense. Are coming off a 120-101 win over the Lakers after they lost to the Lakers 106-103 a few days prior. Paolo Banchero has been someone who has, I think, done some really impressive stuff. And where I want to start with him, Brendan, is that his shot profile is a little bit different than last year. And I'm curious to see what you make of that. He's taking more shots at the rim. He's taking fewer threes. And this is already someone who was, relative to his position, not taking necessarily a ton of threes. You know, his effective field goal percentage is still a little bit low, but he's 47% of his shots at the rim. That's up 10% from last year. 16% of his shots are from 3. That's down 5% from last year. It's still early, but it seems like he is deciding, I am a large man who is really strong, and I'm going to go at you at the rim more than I'm going to take threes just because that's the modern thing. That kind of feels like the early lesson from what Paolo is. Does that read you, and what do you make of just this adjustment we're seeing?
I agree with the approach. I think that is his realization. I would say I don't expect it to be 47% all year would be my guess. I think he is a good three-point shooter. It feels like the very Jason Tatum-esque form of the pull-up 3 that he's starting to come along with is a weapon for him that he'll lean into too. But To me, the approach in that regard, he got to the free throw line a bunch last year, so it's just an expansion of what we've already known. Maybe there's a little bit of holdover from the way that he was used with Team USA, where it really was that on the roll, in transition, it was just Paolo get to the basket, right? To me, the biggest reason I would guess he's kind of either by necessity or deliberately doing this is the team context. This is a team that has nobody else who gets to the basket. So if they're going to be good, if they're going to try their damnedest, hopefully, fingers crossed, please, to get out of the bottom 10 offensively, I think that the diversification of their offense is going to need to come. And the number one way for that to happen is for him to be more effective as a driver. And he has the feel to turn that into a drive and kick, to get the floater up, to try to draw the foul, or to just dunk on your head. I mean, we saw the touch that he had against LeBron or against whoever was guarding him to win the Jazz game on that game winner. That was like driving to his right, kind of almost like along the box, and drops up a little touch teardrop off the like top of the backboard. You know what I mean? That stuff is next level, and so that's where I think it's coming from. Is just somebody has to do it. And it's probably got to be him because they don't have the guards who are capable right now.
Well, to his point, too, he just also has the frame at 6'10 and like 250, whatever he is, to absolutely just hammer guys. He had a drive against the Lakers in that second game where Christian Wood and Max Christie were trying to guard him. And he just hammered them. Christie is trying to help, and Christian Wood is the main defender on Paolo, and he just had no chance. Christian Wood is like ostensibly an NBA center who's like a grown adult man, and Paolo, who is younger than him, looked bigger, played bigger, and I don't know what teams are supposed to do with that. When he is aggressive and getting downhill like that, I do not exactly know what you're supposed to do to defend that guy. That guy is kind of a one-man downhill wrecking ball. And if he doesn't ever shoot threes at a really big clip, but he adds passing, I would kind of take that trade-off. If he kind of has that kind of game, and you have Franz, and you have shooters around him, and you have a big who can maybe space a little bit and play make a little bit, there's a way that isn't like a total hamper on his ceiling to me, because he's not unguardable when he does this, but he becomes insanely hard to guard when this guy is just going downhill, and your job is to stop this wrecking ball of a human being with really good footwork and really good touch. And he's only going to get better. Right now he's about at the same percentage.
That's what I was going to say. It's like he can't. Yeah. He's not unguardable right now, but he's 20. Like he might get pretty damn close.
Well, and even at the rim, it's like right now he's at like 63%. I think that's about where he was last year. This is someone that as he gets stronger, touch gets better. Maybe adds a couple other moves into his repertoire, maybe like a good, short mid-range pull-up, something like that. The efficiency at the rim could get up to like big man numbers. Like it's there on the table for him if it goes a certain way.
Yeah, and look, it's like the three-point shooting is good enough already. I think you trust him if it's catch and shoot. It's not like it's Giannis or something, right? And so... And then the other part is being a perimeter player doesn't have to mean that you're bombing threes. I think the stuff we saw at Duke in terms of dribble handoffs, face up, he can turn an ISO or a catch at the top of the key into a layup pretty easily. And so as long as a three-point shot is good enough, it'll open up the rest, and the passing has always been there and everything else. I mean, I think how they build this thing will be interesting. You see the effect that Ingles and Harris have when they're out there as kind of that's what you're shooting toward, even though you're not going to obviously play those guys too much because you're trying to develop. But we talked a lot in our preview heading into the year about like one of these two star players needs to become the engine of the offense full time. And I think we've talked about Franz last week. To me, because of the 3-level ability that I think Paolo is flashing, it feels more like it'll be him if he can keep some of this stuff up. But both are great, and both have been very good to start the year, and both have started to take over a little more, which is the other thing we talked about with Franz that I think is worth mentioning with Paolo. Those shot attempts and everything after our first week check-in with them was like, why are these guys not just grabbing hold of these games? And Paolo did in that Jazz game for sure.
Mm-hmm. The other bit of news with them right now is that Wendell Carter Jr. is going to miss some time. He has going to miss at least 3 weeks after he is going to undergo surgery to repair a fractured finger. He injured his left hand, injuring his third metacarpal after he went for a rebound late in their Thursday win over the Jazz.
Yeah.
Got to tell you, Brendan, this is just a stark reminder that I don't really trust the other two centers on this roster, and Goga Batadze and Mo Wagner, who, to Mo Wagner's credit, was good against the Lakers. Goga got the start after this, so we'll see if that continues going forward. This isn't obviously going to keep Wendell Carter Jr. out for a long bit of time here, but it's a little bit concerning, and you look at this roster a little bit, and you look at this team, and you think, okay, if there's another way they could add without maybe expending too much, then maybe you get into a situation where you could find another center to just kind of give them a more veteran, stable presence at that backup spot, or find another way to fill those minutes. Maybe it's just Paolo to some degree, right? Like,
I think when we talked about it with Memphis, that kind of trade is probably not happening now, right? So it's like you kind of got to just tread water, I think, for better or worse. The defense has been significantly better with Wendell on for 2 years now, last year and into the start of this season. So that's where you're going to see it drop off. I think Wagner's fine. I've kind of been sold on him watching their team more consistently this year. I don't always love when coaches do we're going to pull the guy from the 14th roster spot into our starting lineup just so the same guy can continue to be our backup. Like, I just don't love that. I think the other guy that you'll see more at center is Jonathan Isaac. I think that they'll just go small. They've already been playing him at center at times, and so I think if Goga doesn't work out, he was good on the glass in that Lakers game, so he was able to survive. If there's nights where it's just not working for him, you might just see the kind of center rotation be Wagner, Isaac, and then, maybe Paolo. But they have enough options where for 3 weeks I think it's fine. And honestly, we don't have time to talk about the offense too deeply like we thought we might, but Carter is a question mark there too. He doesn't ever want to shoot the ball, and so you might see some lineups where if Wagner's out there with the starters, it's like bombs away and things look pretty good.
Yeah, next week as a tease, I think we're going to get into Markelle Fultz and his fit on this team and what the offense sort of is right now. And he's kind of a symptom of that, and what opportunities lie for Jalen Suggs and Cole Anthony and Anthony Black, who's getting real minutes for this team so far. So there's a lot to dive into with the Magic. We'll talk about the Fultz part of this in the offense again next week on this segment. Quickly on the Sacramento Kings. The big story here is that De'Aaron Fox could be back Monday. We'll see. But, Brendan, they've been a disaster without him. I'm going to throw some numbers out there in the world here. With no Fox on the floor, 280 possessions, minus 11.7 per 100, scoring 102.5, giving up 114.2. The defense has been relatively good. The most common lineup with no Fox, which is Mitchell, Herter, Murray, Barnes, Sabonis. It's been good defensively.
The starters.
It is the starters. It's been scoring 92.6 points per 100 possessions. That is untenable. That is an abomination. This is a switch a little bit from last year. If you look at the lineup data and whatnot from last year with no Fox on the floor, the Kings didn't fall this far underwater when Fox sat. They were about even with him off the floor. Offense on average was pretty good. The Mitchell, Herter, Barnes, Murray, Sabonis lineup scored at a 125.9 clip and was actually worse on defense. So this could just be like small sample size goofiness. But I get a little, when you see this, I mean, the alarm bells have to go off a little bit when you see this and say, what's going on here? Like, what exactly is happening with this team without Fox? And the sooner they get him back, the sooner they can just do normal, good NBA team things like beat the Houston Rockets.
Yeah, well, maybe not let Dillon Brooks go off would be another way to win
12
that game.
points in the fourth for Dillon Brooks. Clutch. He's out here being clutch.
Yeah, that's exactly what you think of when you think of clutch scorers, right?
Yeah.
I think the interesting part of this, too, that, again, is definitely far too small of a sample size to make any proclamations from, but Malik Monk on and De'Aaron Fox off this year, and that obviously includes the games when Fox played, but just when he would have been on the bench, is 78 minutes again, -6 net rating. I'm looking at Monk more than anything if Fox does miss Monday's game or just those numbers, period, because I think that's one of the ways that they can not be so reliant on him, of course. And Fox has been decent in those games so far this year, production-wise. 16-3-2 on the first game, and then 18-3-7, around 50% shooting. That's solid, and if he can continue to play make, I think. But the big thing to me, Chris, from his absence is they just don't control the pace of these games anymore.
Nope.
There's really nobody who can do that, and of course that's 1A in the list of things you would ever want to highlight about De'Aaron Fox's game. It may sound obvious, but when your whole identity is built around that, you know you're not going to be a game-changing defense. You know that you don't maybe have a ton of creation overall, really. To take that link out of the chain it just grounds everything to a halt, and it's suddenly Domantas Sabonis like post-ups and stuff. You know what I mean? It's just way too much of the other stuff. And then that's not to mention the limitations of Davion Mitchell and kind of the rotation ramifications and whatnot. But it's such a different watch to see this team not have that element. And you just are reminded it's like, oh, that's the whole element, you know? And
yeah,
I don't necessarily know if it's great to be so reliant on one player, but that's their roster. So they got to kind of adjust for that, and that's why I come back to Monk, because he can sort of replicate that. So you just want him to continue to come along as a primary creator.
One thing I also think that would help is just Kevin Huerter being functional and being like a competent NBA player was a big deal last year, and he's still at 20% from three, under 30% from the field so far this year. He's playing 6 fewer minutes per game. It's the lowest number of minutes he's ever played per game since coming into the league in Atlanta in 2018-19. He's just in a funk, and you don't have he is not like the easiest easy button, but he is someone that can be an outlet for you. He's someone that can create easy offense for you because he can hit a three and it just adds up, and you don't have to try too hard to get him good looks because he just is going to take the open threes that naturally come to him, and he can come off handoffs and stuff. And if that's not working, and Mitchell's your starter and he doesn't give you a ton on offense, and Monk, this Monk stuff, and you're letting Murray kind of figure out his ceiling a little bit. Like, you just end up, I think, in a weird spot where you're kind of searching for an identity a little bit, and that's not exactly like a fun place to be if you're Mike Brown trying to figure all this out. And like Fox is not someone we're gonna sit here and say is a top 10 player. He is not like a MVP candidate. As good as he is, I don't know if he's not quite in that category. But he's kind of he is one of these guys, it feels like, that is kind of a system because of the speed he plays at. And you can't, even with some of the stuff Monk can do to replace that, there's just a dynamicism in a tempo that Fox can unlock for you that there's not many other guys that you could just plug in and say like, yeah, you can do this. And none of the they're other really good players who aren't playing on the Kings.
Yeah, I mean, and that's why like it's interesting with Monk, because he was always at his best as like the change of pace running back. It's like, oh, he can do it too, but it's really being unlocked by Fox, and then suddenly he's darting down the court, and you thought the inbound pass or the outlet pass was coming to Fox, and now, oh crap, there's two of them. But Monk doing it alone, he's just not that level of player. I mean, the contracts will tell you that, everything. Like, it just sort of is what it is. But yeah, I mean, obviously not a whole lot to learn about the team when the best player is not playing, but it's still a learning experience, and I think some of the stuff you're seeing Keegan Murray continue to do, especially filling in for Huerter, I think is still promising. And the guys like Colby Jones are getting an opportunity, and Davion Mitchell, who we mentioned, and everything. It's good experience for them, but it's also, to me, like, maybe the last note is a reminder of the realities of the NBA for this team, who was about the healthiest in the league last year. And real NBA teams have to deal with their best player being out sometimes. And the Kings did not really have to do that with Sabonis or Fox last year. And that's a big part of why they got to the top 4 seed that they got to. If they have absences, things change.
What a concept, having your best players healthy is good for your basketball team.
Helps.
Very much helps. All right, we'll be back later this week. Vince Goodwill again coming through to talk about the Clippers and maybe answer some other questions with us, and we'll have another full episode in your feeds later this week. Thanks again to our new partner, Thrive Fantasy. Use that code JUSTBASKETBALL again to get a first deposit match up to $250 on Thrive Fantasy, and check out our friends at Homage as well. Hit subscribe, rate, and review. 5 stars only if you haven't already. I'm Chris Manning. That's Brendon Kleen. Enjoy the hoops. Back at you with more Just Basketball later this week.